So now we're going to start, and I'd like to introduce Dominika Bednarska, a 2012 Lambda Fellow in Poetry.
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to read a few short poems from my manuscript, Smothered Breath, that should be out later this year. Cripple. I like the rip in it. The space between O and O. Not having to cover it like a rip in my stocking. The gap between what you saw when I was sitting at the bar and what you saw when I walked away. I like the ripple in it. The way it mimics the sway and contractions of my body, its small, constant motions. The way at first friends and lovers won't even say it, can barely push it off the tongue, and then find it one day not only filled with fire and wind, but also water and air. Even. If my mother came home from the hospital with me, we might have been on even ground. But I came home months later, creating a deficit that would be filled with arguments smaller than I was when I came home. My stereo, the math test, a green sweater. Now she is the smaller, dependent one, and I am giddy with pleasure. Can you get that for me? She says, standing in the middle of the room, staring at a flannel sock with frustrated tears. She looks pissed, like someone waiting for a late bus, but she doesn't take public transportation like me, so she's not used to it. I pick up the sock and hand it to her. Now we are even. One long poem regarding the body, a tongue-drawn reproduction of the lines on a hand. Sometimes that's the best language can do. Shall we touch? Perhaps, just not one another. It's only proper to avert one's eyes later, pretending it's because we've already seen all there is to see, and not because we can no longer stand to look. Shoving off the weight of a lover's body, call it weight redistribution. It gets too much, like the weight of our own bodies. Focus blurry eyes on the head of a ballpoint pen. Write her down using dots and shading. Our faces are just many small circles touching at the rims. Our whole bodies, in fact. Intimacy must flee. Within us, there is already so much. And one last one. This is called Palm Up. The heart should be offered as the Holy Eucharist, stacked upon palms in the most intricate manner. I am sufficiently strangled by my own supplication, so now I must mime this happy medium of good enough and not so bad and maybe when he wins my winning win, I can lie back and flourish the colors intersection marked middle between my breath in and out of order. So you sling slide breathless up where you thought the poems were more plentiful and the punctuation sparser, only to find that we want to publish what we cannot perish because the poems sown of poems that come from the exact position of bodies that you could not trace and retrace just so are the poems we discard like scraps. Because I can be anyone, so why choose to be one of the ones we have already asked to be quiet and would ask to sit down if, well, they weren't the source of so much throat clearing. So clear all our minds and say, this is too specific. Poetry is meant to mean without meaning so much. Like when one says, I love you, it means I enjoy having sex with you and wanted to continue at my convenience. Or we are related and I may need help moving or money at some point. But the page prone to tears in skin and tissue pulsates for us too. Nevertheless, I want to leave it here so you can hold it, palm up on your own terms.